The Journeyman Project, Pegasus Prime. I guess I did technically play and finish this game in 2017, the Steam version anyway, but I don't have that much more to say about it other than watch my content. Cool? Cool. The Legend of Korra. Sometimes I'm attracted to games that people have said in the past are bad, because I wonder to myself, how bad could they possibly be? In the case of The Legend of Korra, not as bad as I thought. Its main issues revolve around execution of their ideas, like involving sports ball at the beginning of their game. My opinion, it should not have been at the beginning of the game, as it now results in being the game's first impression of what it's going to be like. The second is kind of my own personal fault, because I have not watched any of the Legend of Korra show. I watched Avatar, sure, but not Korra, so my investment in everything was just not there. This resulted in things just kind of happening. And I kind of felt that over like the 6 chapters that the game actually have, is that things really just happen. I don't feel like this game was done in confidence, just like I feel awkward about discussing it right now. If you're someone who feels inclined to play all the Platinum games, then you will certainly learn a lot about when their design and execution does not succeed like expected. Resogun. I played more shooter games than I thought this year, and I wish I had more to say about any of them. I feel with a lot of classic feeling shooters, you need to have something that sets you apart, such as dynamically changing areas for you to shoot from, like Hypervoid, or a 3D space for you to fight through each stage, which I didn't even mention when I was talking about Nano Assault EX. Resogun goes for a cylindrical, 2-dimensional shooter with an environment for you to look at in the center, but you can also interact with it, but in limited ways. One of these ways is getting shot and killed, possibly blowing up the scenery in your area in a pretty pixely way. But not only do you have to shoot the bad things who shoot back at you, you also have the duty of saving the last humans, who get released periodically in the stage with 10 in total. You need to use your tractor beam to grab them and bring them to safety. You can, but it is also fun to juggle the humans around as you dodge enemy shots, and see the little human icon flail around helpless, as you are the only thing standing between freedom and destruction. This game certainly gets better depending on how you want to play it. Much like other games, the goals you make for yourself, coupled with what the game expects you to do, can deliver more fun than just playing the game itself. And while Resogun tries to engage you with various modes and challenges to keep you playing, I find a few minutes/seconds of being a tractor beam asshole to be more fun. So thanks, Resogun, for allowing me to ignore your whims and make a little fun of my own. Abyss Odyssey. I think playing The Binding of Isaac many years ago ruined me for the roguelike genre. The other problem I have with video games in general is that I like to play games that have an ending to them, and that I can just move on from a game once I've finished with it. In this day and age, if any executives are listening, ha! I am not the kind of person you cater to, and I am not interested in your, quote, services. However, I wish I could get into an MMO, something, maybe Elder Scrolls Online, who knows. I know that I have that. What was I talking about? Right, roguelikes. Despite feeling ruined for me, there are some times that I want to dip my toes into another one. Case in point with Abyss Odyssey. The reason for that was judging by the book cover, really. It looked pretty with a style that I had not experienced before. Digging deeper, I realized that it was actually made by Ace Team, makers of Rock of Ages and Xenoclash, who are based out of Chile. And I am glad to be able to support developers in lesser known parts of the world, like Sword Tales, makers of Torin, who are from Brazil. Torin is also a game that I also really like too. Rock of Ages is such a special game that I had to see what this game was like, and found it to be a combination between a roguelike and a 2D brawler, making your way to the bottom of a chasm in order to fight the warlock that has conjured this event that the game takes place in. The game does not pull any punches either, and I find the difficulty comes from two things. One, the roguelike elements, of course. Obviously, a run is going to be harder if you don't get a good setup of rooms, and if your equipment is not up to stuff and you cannot find more. However, being a brawler on top of that slightly dissipates that difficulty once you get accustomed to the controls. However, on top of that, number two, the brawling is not that great. It does not feel like there's a lot of weight behind your attacks, and you can get comfortable with a few attacks to keep your distance from enemies so they hit you less. I have not played Xenoclash yet, but I find it odd that they have done 2 first-person brawlers, and that the brawling in this game was not as tight as it could be. Time to do some research, I guess. In any case, getting back to my point about roguelikes, I placed that in the list because once you reach the bottom and fight the Warlock, I find there is not a lot left to do with a purpose. Other than get lucky and unlock the other playable characters, fight the other random bosses that might appear, and as I write this all down, using the words lucky and might appear make me feel like I would have to do an untold number of runs in order to reach whatever the game has to offer between the beginning and end. And there are honestly better games out there that do this better, and provide better engagement. To its merit, Abyss Odyssey does go on sale constantly, so maybe give it a shot then, but I can't give a solid recommendation to it. If you want to support Ace Team, get Rock of Ages, especially now that the sequel's out. Rhythm Heaven Megamix. I love Rhythm Heaven. So having a game which combines most, maybe all, I believe, of the rhythm games from the previous 3 games and compiling them into themes presented in a light story mode that is new to the series, and you have a great time. Rhythm Heaven is easily one of the happiest games I have ever played, presenting a great first impression from what is expected, simplistic and solid visuals, and great music to test your rhythm skills against. However, if you've ever gone through a Rhythm Heaven game, you know that the slight feeling slightly erodes as you dig deeper into the shell of the game, because inside that happy candy shell of Rhythm Heaven resides a game that deeply hates you. That is when the game begins to tell you to perfect all of the minigames. Make no mistakes, be perfect. You will fail if you are not perfect. You want to unlock all the rhythm games, right? Be perfect then. Anyway, I find the game really fun when there is something for everyone, especially to challenge your rhythm skills. You do develop a little rhythm-based PTSD though when you perfect Lockstep and Rhythm Rally on Rhythm Heaven DS, only for them to return in Megamix. And you have to do it again, and you thought you were done, but you're not really done. You'll never be done, never. Anyway, Megamix tries to break from its previous game's shadows by providing new things to do, such as feeding a goat. They, for some reason, put in a pachinko-style game, where you shoot onions into a changing pachinko board, and as you feed the goat, it levels up. At certain intervals, the goat will present you with a prize, which you can boast about, but they also will change the loading screen, so there is something to it. You get a little bit out of it. And if you feel like a real challenge, the Challenge Train exists, which will present you with a collection of rhythm games for you to complete, with a twist. This includes increasing the speed, the rhythm game slowly about to be eaten by a monster if you do not get perfect beats in the rhythm game, or something as simple as getting over a certain score. Lockstep also doesn't go away. Be prepared for the Lockstep challenge, and the game going faster, faster, faster as it digs into your brain, and you reach the next level of insanity. So yeah, Rhythm Heaven Megamix. I love Rhythm Heaven. I might be damaged a little bit. Kingdom Hearts, and Kingdom Hearts Re-Chain of Memories. I finally got on the series bandwagon. And there's honestly not a lot for me to say about the first games that have not already been said by like 50 other YouTubers that, get paid for their words in their videos. So, I'll just say go search for them. Like Clemps or Super Butterbuns or whoever you think. Really just YouTube search Kingdom Hearts and you'll find somebody. They were just the 2 I found about in 2017 that are more eloquent about yelling about this kind of thing. The next stop for me is actually playing 3 Fight over 2 days. So onwards for me! The House of the Dead 2. For some reason, in 2016 and 2017, I've been able to play and beat one game at an arcade. Weird. 2016 was Time Crisis 4, which I already mentioned earlier in another game. But this year I played The House of the Dead 2, and enjoyed the nonsensical story and stiff voice acting. Getting through the stages was pretty forward, with the occasional quick moves to lose a life, of course, because it's an arcade. But if you decide to play it, I found the difficulty getting stupid by about stage 5. The boss of stage 5 is the beginning of taking all of your money, requiring pinpoint accuracy, and honestly, I did not really figure out the pattern for that boss, and where the weak spot really opened. A constant for me with arcade games is being prepared to spend at least $15 in order to complete it. I know I did. Mass Effect 1 and 2. I'm going to talk about this anyway, despite me playing and beating these games years ago. I decided to come back this year to Mass Effect 1 and 2 in order to do an Insanity run, which I found to be surprisingly insanely satisfying to play through. The reason I did was to refresh myself before going into Mass Effect 3, for the very first time. You see, BioWare and I have a very strange relationship, which goes back to my first BioWare game, which was Baldur's Gate 2. This relationship is that I will have access to the game roughly when it comes out. I will start the game, go through the tutorial usually, and then drop the game for at least a year before coming back to it, having to do the tutorial again because I don't remember anything. Dragon Age Origins is a great example of that, completing one of the origin stories and being let loose in Ostagar, only to then drop it, and then I have to start the game all over again roughly a year later. To put into perspective in this case, I bought Dragon Age Origins the week it came out, and was super excited to play it. I still enjoy the story to this day, and even though 60 hours in, the story could still throw twists that surprised me. I love Dragon Age Origins. By the time I finished it though, Dragon Age 2 was getting released in 2 weeks. With this kind of problem I have with BioWare games, it makes it hard to play a long-running series like Mass Effect, as I feel like I have to go through the games again and again and again, especially when you can import your Shepard into the next game. Again, I have not played Mass Effect 3 yet, but I have had Mass Effect 3 since Christmas of 2012. This needs to start coming to an end for me. Rogue Legacy. This game started promising, but turned into, honestly, not the right kind of game for me. I had watched a decent amount of good players play Rogue Legacy in the past, and I found out as I started playing that I could not even compare to them. The concept of Rogue Legacy is still really good, playing the descendant of the last character who died, but I found that the biggest issue, and this is all me, by the way, is that I started to rely on certain character classes in order to progress. I was not confident enough in my skills to use other classes. Just as a point of advice, this is a bad way to play Rogue Legacy or other similar games in the roguelike genre. I only have myself to blame. Despite myself, Rogue Legacy is still a game that is built very well, and I recommend it if you have not played it yet. Mega Man 9. I did it! I finally played and finished a Mega Man game. No, I had not finished a Mega Man game before this point, because I really suck at Mega Man. And I also didn't have any other Mega Man games to play. Mega Man 9 showed me how much I sucked, especially at the Wily stages. Imagine spending 4 to 5 hours trying to get through the stages and— Stop punching me! I did it. And with that momentum, I decided to play Mega Man 10, finally having a Mega Man title under my belt, and a little experience. Mega Man 10 went a little bit better. Certainly not as much time to finish it as Mega Man 9, but shows if you have enough perseverance, you can achieve— Woo! Yeah, that's rich. But it is true about the experience part. Black Dahlia. Not much to say about Black Dahlia right now, as it's currently ongoing on this channel, but I'm glad to be able to get it working pretty well on Windows 10. It's quite friendly to it, actually. And I'll just say again that it is a slow burn of a game. We have not even reached the second half of the game yet, and the weird stuff is just beginning to start, as you might have seen. So I would say go watch the series. Again, watch my content, damn it. Code of Princess. First off, there is a reason why this game is called Code of Princess, and I'll just say that it is a wasted plot point. They could have done more with that. Second, mentioning the story, it is strangely aware of itself. If you are familiar with generic fantasy RPG tropes, this story digs at them, but not really in a good way. In fact, now that I think about it, I don't know what this game was trying to do. I feel that the point was lost at some point. There are a lot of characters you get introduced to that become playable in a separate mode, that are there simply for one reason, and do not get really fleshed out. In fact, the coolest thing about the game is that literally every single character that you meet and see in the game, down to villagers, an old lady, or some monsters, they become playable once you reach certain requirements. That is really cool. I also found the combat system to be pretty inspiring as well. It's a 2D brawler of sorts, where in the main story you will have access to 4 playable characters with their own combat styles, including a giant sword wielder, thief, mage, and bard who can literally shred with the best of them on his lute. FYI, he's the best character to use, as not only does he shred on his lute, but you can invest points in order to level up your characters into making him shred through almost all enemies, even most bosses. Being on the 3DS, a 2D brawler is kind of but Code of Princess switches it up by having the ability to switch between 3 planes in order to do combat. If a tree is in your way, you can move up and down to a different plane and continue forward. This is really a mechanic that I have not seen since like Disney's Hercules on PS1. So, I don't know. I appreciate what Code Princess presents to the player, but at the same time, I feel that the game needed more time to solidify certain points story-wise. There was a lot more that they could have done. If you enjoyed this video, clicking a button or 2 is hard, I know, but just remember to come back every so often to see if I have more videos up. My schedule for videos releasing is inconsistent, I know, and my quality is questionable at best, so I'll leave it in your hands whether or not to subscribe or like or whatever. I'll keep trying with new things and continue to improve. That's all I can do. Take care, everyone.